I was reading that when you were shot by a rubber bullet. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, in a little a village outside Ramallah in the occupied territories called Belen, the Israelis are building a wall and annexing part of the Palestinian villagers, the village itself, cutting the villagers off from their olive groves and their livelihoods. So the villagers have started now for about 4 years. Every Friday, after going to the mosque, they walk up towards the wall and to protest the building of the wall. And the Israeli soldiers attack them with sometimes live ammunition, because people have been killed at the wall. Unarmed women and children took part in this protest, and the men, and they use CS gas. So the villagers have a 3-day conference where they study non-violence. They set out policies as to how to do non-violent resistance against the stealing by Israel of their land and the occupation of Palestine. And so every year some of us go to support them and to encourage them, just to say that we care about the Palestinians and their non-violent struggle for their land. And on one occasion I was hit in the thigh as I was coming away from the wall and trying to help another French activist away, and several times have been gassed. But you know, what I have suffered is nothing in comparison to the fact that these villagers in Berlin live like this under occupation and abuse by Israeli soldiers constantly. I mean, there's not a night doesn't pass that the Israeli soldiers don't go into the village of Berlin, search the houses, take out young men, take some of them to prison in Israel. And so the villagers are suffering tremendously. And I think that's why we go, just to support them and to tell the outside world what is happening in these Palestinian villages where people are resistant non-violently. Well, I was invited, I was a member of an international peace council, and people from all different faiths and none working together on social issues to try to bring about change together. And when I was invited by one of the councillors, a Jewish rabbi from Jerusalem, to go to Jerusalem to see the work of the rabbis for human rights and against the demolition of Palestinian homes, I went there. That's almost over 10 years ago now, and I was so shocked by my experience in occupied East Jerusalem and in the West Bank, occupied territories, when I seen how Palestinian homes were being demolished. I also sat in at a military court in the occupied area of Palestine of Abu Fayyaz, who was an Arab father who was being charged in court for building a home without a permit. So that really moved me very deeply, to see the suffering of the Palestinian people living under occupation. And I thought I will continue to come back here just to support those who are working for non-violent change and to end the occupation in Palestine. And I've continued to go since that. Well, I think that I would say to the Arab community and world that I have been inspired by some of your Arab writers and leaders. And you know, I was always inspired by Abdul Ghaffar Khan. And Abdul Ghaffar Khan, he was from Afghanistan, and he was a great friend of Mahatma Gandhi, and he talked about non-violence. And when he worked to try to liberate his country, he mobilized hundreds of thousands of people to work for a non-violent solution to the problem in his country. And his book, A Man for His Mountains, is a beautiful book. So, I mean, the Arab world has its own non-violent heroes. And I must say, in going to Palestine for the last 10 years and going into some of the villages, Ramallah, Nailin, Bailin, I have seen many Gandhis there who are practicing non-violence, who, though they're suffering tremendously under occupation, they have great dignity, and they have reared their family and tried their best to work non-violently to end the occupation of their country. So, I mean, the Arab world has much to teach us. Now, if we in Ireland have anything to say to the outside world, it is that in our own situation, when we have had Ireland too was colonised. In the north of Ireland in the last 40 years, we had a violent ethnic political conflict, and it seemed very black at times. There didn't seem to be a way through it, and a lot of people said there are so many complications to the Irish question, it can't be solved. And you know, people came out and said, we know it can't be solved through militarism and war, and we know it can't be solved through armed struggles and violence, but we passionately believe it can be solved through non-violence, through dialogue, through negotiation, through people sitting down and trying to work to create politics that are fair and equal, that are genuinely democratic, that recognise human dignity, international laws and human rights. And when we started that journey in the north of Ireland here, people said there won't be a solution, non-violence doesn't work. But you know, we proved that non-violence does work. Indeed, it's the only thing that works. So when I go to Palestine and Israel, and I see the Palestinians and the Israelis and the internationals working together on the ground, building their non-violent movement together, I have great hope for the Middle East. I believe within the next 10 years that we will see tremendous change between Israel and Palestine, and that Palestine will have its right to self-determination. I think that we have to realise that we're a very young human family and we really don't know each other very well, and that one of our deepest fears is our fear of embarrassment. You know, we're all afraid of maybe saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. We're also afraid of people from different cultures, different religions, different backgrounds. And we're afraid of ethnic annihilation. You know, we put a lot into our ethnic identities, far too much actually. We put too much into our differences instead of celebrating the things that we have in common. So when every human being has to cope with these fears, and we all have to learn how to deal with the war that goes on inside ourselves for starters, and learn how to be peaceful and more integrated people within ourselves. And once we do that, then we can reach out to others and we can see the spirit in everyone, and we see each other as human beings, not as Christians and Arabs or Catholics or Jews or Muslims. We see each other as human beings here for a little while, all struggling because life is hard with our own problems, but all at the same time wanting to be happy and to lead fulfilled and happy lives and to help each other. I never cease to be amazed at people's desire to change the world. So, I mean, I think that we must not allow the media or sensationalism or politicians to divide us into the East and the West, and as to demonise one people against another. And tragically, this can happen. But we have to learn to see where demonisation is setting in, and we have to learn to speak truth and reach out to each other in friendship and work together and change the culture away from one of conflict and violence to one of coexistence and cooperation. Well, I think Israel has done a tremendous propaganda exercise and continues to propagandize, but the world is becoming far more aware of what actually is happening now in Palestine and in Gaza and being carried out by Israel. And so the ground is shifting with regard to Israel. People are catching on that they have been bluffed for a long time. I mean, Israel has argued that it has no partner for peace, but Israel has a partner for peace. It has the Palestinian people, and they're their partners for peace. But unfortunately, what has happened is Israel has made a choice for land. Israel continues to talk peace, but it continues to occupy Palestinian land, and it's not serious about peace. I mean, I last year visited Silwan, which is an area in East Jerusalem, and in that area today Israel is demolishing 80 Palestinian homes to build shops for Israelis, and it's putting out in East Jerusalem, occupied East Jerusalem, which is where the Arab and Palestinians live. It's putting the Palestinians out of their homes in order to bring in Israeli Jews, building hotels, tourist facilities. In one area, Israel has actually built a museum of tolerance on top of a Muslim graveyard. Can you imagine anything more insulting to the Arab Muslim people that Israel would build a museum of tolerance on the graves of Muslims? I mean, I was so shocked when I visited that place and seen it. The Museum of Tolerance that Israel is building is toleration between the different Jewish communities. It's nothing to do with toleration between Jews and Muslims. So this is just not acceptable. And when the world community is realizing more and more that what Israel is doing is a slow genocide of the Palestinian people, and that Palestinians, there are 6 million Palestinian refugees around the world. It's the largest diaspora of all the different peoples, as the Jewish the Palestinian people, who are not allowed to return to Palestine, while Israel is bringing in Jews from Russia and other parts of the world. Now, this is just unbelievable, and it's not acceptable in today's world. So I think Israel has to be challenged to choose peace, not Zionism and more land. Even if Israel reached a settlement tomorrow with the Palestinians, it would still have 78% of the Palestinian land. Now that is unbelievable. So the world is waking up to what Israel is doing, and the more, it's all about education. When you educate people to the truth of what is happening to the Palestinian people, I think we will look back in horror and say, how come we allowed that to happen?